Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he sorted through another pile of discarded alien technology. The scrapyard on Kepler 442b stretched for miles in every direction, a graveyard of broken dreams and failed experiments from dozens of species across the galaxy. Most humans avoided this place, calling it cursed or haunted. Marcus called it home. He had been running Chen's salvage for 3 years now, ever since the Galactic Council had designated this backwater planet as an official dumping ground for obsolete technology. The pay was decent enough, and someone had to do the dirty work of separating valuable components from genuine trash. The other species considered it beneath them, but Marcus found a strange satisfaction in giving new life to things others had thrown away. The morning sun cast long shadows between towering piles of twisted metal and crystalline fragments. Marcus was examining what appeared to be a damaged navigation array from a Zephyrian trade vessel when he heard it. A sound so faint he almost dismissed it as the wind whistling through the scrap heaps. "Please!" Marcus froze, his hand still gripping the alien device. The voice was small, barely a whisper, but unmistakably real. He set down the navigation array and listened carefully. For a moment there was nothing but the usual sounds of the junkyard, metal creaking in the heat, the distant hum of his processing equipment. Then he heard it again. "Please take me and Mama, human." The word sent a chill down Marcus's spine. In his 3 years working the yard, he had never encountered anything living among the refuse. The Galactic Council had strict protocols about checking all materials before disposal. Nothing sentient was supposed to end up here. Marcus grabbed his scanner and began following the signal. The device beeped steadily as he navigated through narrow passages between mountains of discarded machinery. The deeper he went into the yard, the older the technology became. Some of these piles had been here since before humans joined the galactic community. The scanner's beeping intensified as Marcus approached a section he rarely visited. Here, the scrap was different, more organic in appearance, with flowing curves and biomechanical components that seemed to pulse with their own inner light, even in their broken state. This was Zendari technology, from a species that had mysteriously vanished from the galaxy over a century ago. "Human? Are you there?" The voice was clearer now, coming from somewhere within a partially collapsed structure that might have once been a ship, or perhaps a building. Marcus couldn't tell where Zendari vessels ended and their architecture began. Their technology was famous for blending seamlessly with living tissue. "I'm here!" Marcus called out, feeling slightly foolish for talking to what might be a malfunctioning communication system. "Where are you?" "Inside the healing chamber. Mama won't wake up." Marcus felt his heart sink. Whatever was in there, it was definitely alive, and it was scared. He began carefully removing debris from around the structure, using his tools to cut through twisted support beams and crystalline panels. The Zendari built things to last, but even their technology couldn't survive whatever catastrophe had brought this piece here. After an hour of careful work, Marcus created an opening large enough to squeeze through. He activated the light on his scanner and crawled inside. The interior was surprisingly spacious, with walls that curved organically and glowed with a soft bioluminescence. In the center of the chamber sat a large pod, its surface covered in intricate patterns that reminded Marcus of circuit boards grown from coral. Inside the pod, he could see 2 figures suspended in a thick, amber-colored fluid. One was clearly adult, about the size of a human, but with elongated limbs and delicate features that seemed almost ethereal. The other was much smaller, obviously a child, with the same graceful proportions, but eyes that were wide with fear and intelligence. The child's eyes locked onto Marcus through the pod's transparent surface. When it spoke, he realized the voice was coming through some kind of neural interface, transmitted directly into his mind. "You came. I knew humans were different from what the others said." Marcus approached the pod carefully. His scanner indicated that the adult figure, presumably the mother, was in some kind of stasis, but her vital signs were failing. The child, however, was fully conscious and apparently healthy, just trapped. "How long have you been here?" Marcus asked, not sure if his thoughts would transmit back. "Many cycles. Mama said we would only sleep until the healing chamber fixed her injuries, but something went wrong. The ship was damaged and we ended up here. I've been calling for help, but no one answered until you." Marcus examined the pod's control interface. Most of it was damaged, but he could see that the life support system was running on reserve power that wouldn't last much longer. The child was right to be afraid. "What's your name?" Marcus asked as he began studying the pod's mechanism. "Zaya, and this is my mama, Dr. Kalara Moonwhisper. She was trying to find a safe place for our people when the attack happened." "Attack?" "The Devourer ships came to our home system. Mama was one of the scientists working on a weapon to stop them, but we had to flee when the planet fell. We've been running ever since." Marcus had heard rumors about the Devourers, an ancient enemy that consumed entire worlds before disappearing back into deep space. Most species treated them as myths, but the fear in Zaya's mental voice suggested they were all too real. The pod's systems were incredibly complex, far beyond anything Marcus had worked with before. But as he studied the biomechanical interfaces, he began to see patterns. The Zendari didn't build machines in the traditional sense. They grew them, creating symbiotic relationships between technology and living organisms. "Zaya, I need you to listen carefully. I think I can get you out, but I need to understand how this system works. Can you tell me what these symbols mean?" For the next several hours, Zaya guided Marcus through the intricacies of Zendari biotechnology. The child was remarkably intelligent, displaying an understanding of complex scientific principles that would have impressed most adult humans. Together, they began the delicate process of awakening the pod's systems. As Marcus worked, Zaya shared stories about her people, how they had lived in harmony with their technology for millennia, how they had dedicated their civilization to healing and preservation, and how they had been completely unprepared for the Devourer assault. "Mama always said that every species had something unique to offer the galaxy. She believed that diversity made us all stronger. That's why she wanted to work with other races to stop the Devourers." Marcus felt a connection forming with the young Zendari. Her situation reminded him of his own childhood, growing up in foster care after his parents died in a transport accident. He knew what it was like to feel alone and abandoned, calling out for help that might never come. The pod's bioluminescent patterns suddenly flared brighter, and Marcus heard a soft humming sound as dormant systems came online. Dr. Moonwhisper's vital signs stabilized, but she remained unconscious. "The healing process was interrupted," Zaya explained. "The chamber needs time to complete its work, but the power cells are almost depleted." Marcus looked at his scanner readings. The pod would need at least 12 more hours of full power to finish healing Dr. Moonwhisper, but the current energy reserves would last maybe 2 hours at most. "I can get more power," Marcus said with determination. "My workshop has a fusion generator. If I can jury-rig a connection, you would do that for us? But we're strangers, and from what I've learned about galactic politics, humans have no obligation to help lost Zendari refugees." Marcus smiled, though he knew Zaya couldn't see his expression through the pod. "Where I come from, we have a saying, you help because it's right, not because it's easy. Besides, no child should have to watch their parent die while calling for help that never comes." As Marcus prepared to return to his workshop for supplies, he felt a warm presence in his mind. Zaya's mental voice carried a note of hope for the first time since they had started talking. "Thank you, Marcus Chen. Mama always said that some humans were special. I think she was right." Marcus squeezed back through the opening he had created and began planning his next moves. He had portable power cells, fusion batteries, and enough cable to run a connection from his workshop to the pod. It would take most of the day, but he was confident he could provide the power Dr. Moonwhisper needed. As he gathered his equipment, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was more significant than just saving 2 lives. The Zendari had vanished from galactic civilization, presumed extinct. If Dr. Moonwhisper possessed knowledge about fighting the Devourers, it could be crucial for the entire galaxy. But beyond the strategic implications, Marcus was driven by something simpler and more human. A child had asked for help, and he wasn't about to let her down. The fusion generator hummed steadily as Marcus made final adjustments to the power coupling. He had worked through the night, running cables across nearly half a mile of junkyard terrain and creating a connection that would have made his engineering professors proud. The improvised power link stretched from his workshop to the hidden Zendari pod, snaking between scrap heaps and over-rusted hulks of ancient starships. "Power levels are stable," Zaya's voice whispered in his mind as the healing chamber's systems fully activated. "The bio-neural networks are responding. Mama's cellular regeneration has resumed." Marcus wiped grease from his hands and settled down beside the pod to wait. Dr. Moonwhisper floated peacefully in the amber fluid, her body slowly knitting itself back together at the molecular level. According to Zaya, the healing process would take another 10 hours, but her mother's chances of survival had improved dramatically. "Tell me more about the Devourers," Marcus said, deciding to use the waiting time productively. "If your mother was working on a weapon against them, the Galactic Council needs to know." Zaya's mental presence grew darker, tinged with memories that no child should have to carry. "They came from the void between galaxies. Our astronomers detected them 3 cycles before they reached our system. Massive ships that looked like they were grown rather than built. They consumed everything in their path, not just resources but information, culture, even the quantum signatures of entire worlds." Marcus had studied galactic history during his academy training, but he had never heard details like these. The official records merely stated that several systems in the Outer Rim had gone dark due to unknown catastrophes. When they reached our world, they didn't just destroy it, they absorbed it, pulling the planet's essence into their ships until there was nothing left but empty space. Mama was part of a scientific consortium trying to understand their technology. She discovered something important just before we had to flee. What did she find? The Devourers aren't from outside our galaxy originally. They're us. Or rather, they're what we could become. Mama found genetic markers that matched dozens of species from our own spiral arm. The Devourers are what happens when a civilization completely abandons the balance between technology and biology, between progress and preservation. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The implications were staggering. If the Devourers were indeed evolved versions of current galactic species, it meant that every civilization was potentially at risk of following the same dark path. "Your mother must have found a way to fight them, though, right?" "You mentioned a weapon." "Not a weapon exactly, more like a cure. Mama believed that if the Devourers had once been like us, there might still be some trace of their original nature buried deep within them. She was developing a biotechnological virus that could reactivate dormant genetic sequences and restore their capacity for individual thought and emotion." Marcus stood up and began pacing around the chamber. The scope of Dr. Moonwhisper's work was extraordinary. If she had actually created a way to reverse the Devourer transformation, it could save countless worlds. "Do you know if she completed her research?" "I think so. Before we fled, she downloaded all her data into her personal biomemory matrix. It's stored in her neural implants. But Marcus, there's something else you need to know. The Devourers aren't random in their attacks. They're searching for something specific. What kind of something? Genetic diversity. They've been systematically targeting species that show unique evolutionary traits. Humans are on their list. Marcus stopped pacing. How do you know that? Mama intercepted some of their communications before our world fell. They've been studying human expansion patterns, your technological development, your social structures. They're particularly interested in humanity's ability to adapt and integrate with other species so quickly. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Marcus's shoulders. Not only was he potentially the only person who knew that Dr. Moonwhisper was alive, but she might possess the key to saving humanity and the entire galaxy from an ancient enemy that most people didn't even believe existed. When your mother wakes up, we need to get her to the Galactic Council immediately. That might not be possible, Zaya said quietly. Mama doesn't trust the Council anymore. She tried to warn them about the Devourer threat before our world was attacked, but they dismissed her research as theoretical speculation. They said there was no evidence of any extragalactic threat. Things might be different now. Surely when they see the proof. Marcus, you don't understand. The Council isn't just ignorant about the Devourers. Some of them are actively suppressing information. Mama discovered that certain Council members have been receiving Devourer technology in exchange for intelligence about galactic defense systems. Marcus felt his world shift. The Galactic Council had been humanity's gateway to the stars, the organization that had welcomed Earth into the cosmic community. The idea that some of its members might be collaborating with an existential threat was almost impossible to accept. Are you certain about this? Mama has the evidence in her bio-memory, communications logs, technology transfers, even star charts showing which systems the Council advised to reduce their defensive capabilities right before Devourer attacks. A soft chime echoed through the chamber as Dr. Moonwhisper's vital signs shifted. The healing process was accelerating as her body's natural regenerative abilities were enhanced by the chamber's biotechnology. She's starting to dream, Zaya said with obvious relief. Her neural activity is increasing. She should wake up soon. Marcus checked his chronometer. They had been lucky so far. No other salvage crews had visited this section of the junkyard, and his absence from the main processing facility hadn't attracted attention. But it was only a matter of time before someone came looking for him. Zaya, when your mother wakes up, what will you two do? You can't stay hidden in this pod forever. I don't know. We're refugees with no ship, no resources, and information that powerful people want to keep secret. Mama always said that if something happened to our world, we should find the humans because they were the only species that consistently chose to help others even when there was no benefit to themselves. She was right about that, Marcus said with a smile. But helping you means more than just keeping you alive. If Dr. Moonwhisper's research is as important as you say, we need to find a way to get it to people who can use it. Not the Council, though. Too many of them are compromised. Marcus thought about the problem from multiple angles. The Galactic Council controlled most official channels of communication and research. But humanity had developed its own networks during the decades since first contact, connections built on trade, exploration, and shared scientific interests. What about human research institutions or the independent colonies? There are human scientists working on biological warfare countermeasures, and some of the outer settlements have their own defense forces. That could work, Zaya agreed, but we would need a way to verify their trustworthiness. The Devourers have infiltration capabilities that most species don't understand. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden change in the pod's bioluminescent patterns. The amber fluid began to drain away, and Dr. Moonwhisper's eyes fluttered open. She looked around in confusion for a moment before focusing on Marcus through the pod's transparent surface. When she spoke, her voice came through the same neural interface that Zaya used, but it carried the weight of adult experience and profound sadness. A human, Zaya, you called for help from a human. His name is Marcus Chen, Mama. He found us and gave us power to complete your healing. He's been protecting us. Dr. Moonwhisper studied Marcus with eyes that seemed to look straight through to his soul. After a moment, she smiled. The first genuinely warm expression Marcus had seen from a Zendari. Thank you, Marcus Chen. My daughter chose well, but I must ask, how much has she told you about our situation? Enough to know that you have information the galaxy desperately needs, and that there are people who would kill to keep it secret. Then you understand the danger you've placed yourself in by helping us. Marcus met her gaze steadily. Dr. Moonwhisper, 3 years ago I chose to make my living in a junkyard, giving new life to things other people had thrown away. Your daughter called for help and I couldn't ignore that call. Whatever danger comes next, we'll face it together. The pod's biomechanical systems completed their cycle, and the transparent surface dissolved into nothing, allowing Dr. Moonwhisper to step out onto the chamber floor. She was taller than Marcus had expected, with a grace of movement that spoke of perfect integration between her biological and technological components. Zaya has told me about your power solution and your willingness to help. But Marcus, what we're dealing with goes far beyond a simple rescue. If I share my research with you, you'll become a target for forces that span the galaxy. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Marcus looked at Zaya, who was now free from the pod and standing beside her mother. The young Zendari's eyes held hope, trust, and a maturity born from surviving horrors that would have broken many adults. Dr. Moonwhisper, someone once told me that being human means helping others not because it's easy, but because it's right. Your daughter needed help, and now the galaxy might need the same kind of assistance. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Dr. Moonwhisper nodded slowly. Then let me show you what we're really fighting against, and why humanity may be the key to stopping the Devourers before they consume everything we hold dear. Dr. Moonwhisper pressed her palm against a biomechanical interface that emerged from the chamber wall. Instantly, the air filled with holographic displays showing star charts, genetic sequences, and what appeared to be massive ship configurations, unlike anything in the Galactic database. What you're seeing represents 15 years of research, she explained as Marcus studied the floating images. The Devourers aren't just an external threat. They're a warning about what any species can become if they lose their connection to their fundamental nature. Zaya moved to stand beside Marcus, her young face serious as she pointed to one of the displays. Look at this genetic analysis, Marcus. These are DNA samples from 3 different Devourer ships that Mama managed to collect. Marcus examined the holographic double helixes, noting similarity markers that connected them to species he recognized from the Galactic Council: Zephyrian, Altarian, even what appeared to be corrupted human genetic material. How is this possible? Marcus asked. These species are still active members of galactic civilization. The transformation doesn't happen overnight, Dr. Moonwhisper explained, manipulating the display to show a time-lapse progression. It begins when a species becomes so dependent on technology that they start replacing biological functions with artificial ones. At first, it seems beneficial: enhanced abilities, longer lifespans, increased efficiency. The hologram showed the gradual replacement of organic tissue with mechanical components, but this wasn't simple cybernetics. The technology appeared to be alive, growing and spreading through the host organisms like a benevolent infection. The critical point comes when they begin replacing their emotional and creative centers, Dr. Moonwhisper continued. Logic and efficiency become the only values, and individual identity dissolves into a collective consciousness focused solely on consumption and expansion. Marcus felt a chill as he realized the implications. You're saying that any species could potentially become devourers? Yes, but there's hope. My research has identified a common factor in species that resist the transformation, what I call the preservation instinct. It's the biological drive to protect not just one's own genetic line, but the diversity and uniqueness of other life forms. Zaya activated another display showing behavioral analysis charts. Humans score higher on preservation instinct measures than any other known species. You consistently choose to help others even when it costs you resources or puts you at risk. That's why the Devourers are targeting humanity specifically, Dr. Moonwhisper said. Not because you're a threat to them now, but because you represent everything they've lost. Human genetic material contains the strongest resistance factors to their transformation process. Marcus began to understand the true scope of what they were dealing with. So, your cure? It's designed to reactivate these resistance factors in converted Devourers? Exactly. But I need human genetic material to complete it. Specifically, I need samples from humans who have demonstrated exceptional preservation instinct under extreme circumstances. Marcus laughed, despite the gravity of the situation. Well, you're talking to someone who chose to spend 3 years giving new life to abandoned technology in a junkyard. I'd say that qualifies. Dr. Moonwhisper smiled, the expression transforming her elegant features. That's precisely what I was hoping you'd say. Over the next hour, Dr. Moonwhisper collected genetic samples from Marcus using bioscanners built into the chamber. As she worked, she explained how she would integrate human resistance factors into a virus that could be transmitted to devourer ships through their own communication networks. The beauty of their collective consciousness is also their weakness, she said while calibrating the scanner. Once the virus takes hold in one ship, it will spread throughout their entire network. Individual identity will begin reasserting itself, and their drive to consume will be replaced by their original species' natural behaviors. How long would the process take? Marcus asked. Months, possibly years, for complete reversal. But the effect should be immediate enough to stop their expansion and give us time to develop long-term solutions. Zaya had been monitoring the junkyard's communication channels during the procedure. Marcus, we have a problem. There's a council inspection team heading this way. They'll be here within the hour. Marcus's blood ran cold. Council inspectors had access to deep scan technology that could detect hidden biosignatures anywhere in the facility. There was no way to hide Dr. Moonwhisper and Zaya from that kind of search. We need to get you both off-world, Marcus said, his mind racing through possibilities. I have a small cargo transport, but it's not rated for interstellar travel. That might not be necessary, Dr. Moonwhisper said, studying the genetic integration process on her scanner. The virus is almost ready for deployment. If we can get it transmitted to just one devourer ship, the cascade effect will handle the rest. But how do we transmit it? The devourers aren't exactly accepting communication requests. Zaya pointed to another holographic display. There's a devourer scout ship in this system. It's been monitoring galactic shipping lanes from the outer asteroid belt, probably gathering intelligence for a larger attack. Marcus stared at the display in shock. There's a devourer ship in our system? Why haven't the Council Defense Forces detected it? Because certain council members don't want it detected, Dr. Moonwhisper said grimly. It's been transmitting data to them about human trade routes and defensive capabilities. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place with horrible clarity. The inspection team wasn't coming to check salvage operations. They were coming to eliminate witnesses who might have discovered the Devourer scout ship. We need to move now, Marcus said, grabbing his emergency kit. My transport may not be interstellar rated, but it can reach the asteroid belt. Marcus, that's suicide, Zaya protested. Even if we reach the Devourer ship, how do we get close enough to transmit the virus without being destroyed? Marcus grinned, feeling the same rush of determination that had driven him to answer Zaya's original call for help. Because we're not going to approach it as enemies. We're going to approach it as salvage. 20 minutes later, Marcus's transport lifted off from the junkyard, carrying what appeared to be a standard cargo load of processed scrap metal. Hidden within the cargo bay, Dr. Moonwhisper worked frantically to complete the virus preparation, while Zaya helped Marcus navigate toward the outer system. The scout ship is holding position behind asteroid designation KX-47, Zaya reported from the sensor station. It's heavily shielded, but the bioscanners show approximately 30 individual life signs. 30 individuals who used to be people from our own galaxy, Dr. Moonwhisper said sadly. If this works, we might be able to save them. As they approached the asteroid field, Marcus activated the transport's salvage beacon and began broadcasting on standard commercial frequencies. This is independent salvage vessel Chen's Pride, investigating reports of valuable debris in Grid 77 Alpha. Any traffic in the area, please respond to avoid territorial conflicts. The response came almost immediately, not through radio but as a direct neural transmission that felt like ice water being poured into Marcus's brain. Human vessel, you will cease approach and return to your origin point. This area contains materials vital to our operations. Marcus forced himself to respond normally despite the alien presence in his mind. Understood, but I'm reading some seriously valuable exotic matter signatures out there. How about we discuss a partnership? I provide extraction services, you get first pick of anything useful? There was a long pause before the Devourer ship responded. You would cooperate with us willingly? Friend, I'm a salvage operator. I cooperate with anyone who can make me a profit. What you do with the materials afterward is your business. Dr. Moonwhisper gave Marcus an approving nod. She was right. The Devourer's transformed psychology made them incapable of understanding that someone might help them without expecting technological enhancement in return. They had forgotten what simple human decency looked like. Approach vector approved. You will dock with our vessel and submit to enhancement procedures that will improve your efficiency. Looking forward to it, Marcus lied smoothly. As Chen's Pride drew closer to the massive Devourer ship, Marcus marveled at its organic appearance. It looked less like a constructed vessel and more like an enormous creature that had learned to survive in the vacuum of space. Docking bay is opening, Zaya reported. Marcus, once we're inside, there's no turning back. I know, Marcus replied, checking the virus transmission device Dr. Moonwhisper had jury-rigged from salvaged components. But 30 people are trapped in there, and who knows how many others throughout the galaxy. We can't let fear stop us from doing what's right. The transport settled into the Devourer ship's biomechanical docking bay with a soft thud. Through the viewports, Marcus could see figures approaching, tall, graceful beings that might once have been beautiful, but now moved with the mechanical precision of machines. Remember, Dr. Moonwhisper whispered as they prepared to disembark, the virus needs direct contact with their neural networks to work. Once I touch one of them, the process will begin. And if something goes wrong? Dr. Moonwhisper smiled. And for a moment, Marcus saw where Zaya had inherited her courage. Then we'll improvise. It's what humans do best. The airlock cycled open, and 3 converted beings entered the transport. Their leader spoke in the same emotionless mental voice Marcus had heard before. Human salvage operator, you will accompany us for processing. Your biological efficiency will be improved through integration with our collective. Sounds great, Marcus said, stepping forward with Dr. Moonwhisper and Zaya close behind. I've always wanted to be more efficient. The moment Dr. Moonwhisper's hand touched the lead Devourer's arm, everything changed. The being's mechanical movements stuttered, and for an instant, Marcus saw confusion and fear flicker across features that had been emotionless seconds before. What is happening to me? The being whispered, its mental voice suddenly carrying human intonation and uncertainty. Dr. Moonwhisper smiled gently. You're remembering who you used to be? And now you're going to help us remember who all of you used to be? The virus spread through the ship's neural network like wildfire. Throughout the massive vessel, converted beings stopped their mechanical routines and began experiencing individual thought for the first time in decades. Some cried, some laughed, and all of them slowly began to remember what they had lost. Within hours, the scout ship had transmitted the virus to the greater Devourer fleet through their own communication networks. The cascade effect Dr. Moonwhisper had predicted began immediately, spreading from ship to ship across the galaxy. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the rebuilt council chambers watching Dr. Moonwhisper address representatives from dozens of worlds, including delegations from former Devourer ships whose crews had successfully completed their transformation back to individual consciousness. Zaya, now serving as a cultural liaison between the recovering Devourers and their original species, had grown into her role with typical human adaptability and Zendari wisdom. The crisis taught us something vital, Dr. Moonwhisper was saying to the assembled delegates. Technology without empathy, progress without preservation, efficiency without humanity. These paths lead only to destruction. But when we remember to help those who call out for aid, when we choose to preserve rather than consume, we become something greater than any single species could achieve alone. Marcus smiled as he listened from the gallery. It had all started with a small voice calling for help from a junkyard, and one human who couldn't ignore that call. Now, because of that choice, the galaxy was a little bit safer and a lot more diverse. After the session, Zaya found Marcus in the corridors outside the chamber. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything, for listening when I called for help, for saving Mama, for helping us save everyone else." Marcus knelt down to Zaya's eye level, the same way he had 3 years ago when he first heard her voice through the neural interface. "Zaya, that's what humans do. We help because it's right, not because it's easy. And now that you've learned to think like a human, I expect you to carry on the tradition?" Zaya laughed, a sound of pure joy that echoed through the halls of the rebuilt galactic government. "I will, Marcus Chen. I promise I will."